So to begin stripping out the engine peripherals, you need to remove the air intake duct as demonstrated by the white arrows. That's two, I think 12mm bolts at the front of the engine, which are marked there. Then remove the air filter box and the pipe containing the MAF or the mass airflow sensor. That's jubilees and clips and a couple of bolts. And then get to the solenoid box as indicated by the yellow arrow. That has a small bolt at the top which is like a bracket which holds all the connections in. It has two small bolts holding it to the wing and then one large bolt which goes through it into the wing, which you can only get to once you've removed the air filter box.
I'm going to drain the radiator now, and I've put a hose over that access point. It won't catch everything, but it's really just to try and minimise what goes onto the bottom. I've also got another container underneath the splash guard because I'm too lazy to take the splash guard off, and run the hose into another container outside of the car. So we're just going to twist that key now until it comes out, and hopefully let all the coolant drain. I've also released the top radiator cap, and there's the other one there. And obviously it's important to note, don't do this when the car's hot or even warm. Make sure it's cold. Also disconnected the oil breather pipe here, which lives down there. Next job's going to be to get the intercooler out. Now for the intercooler, there are two mounting bolts at the back here and the same one on the other side. Also need to disconnect the turbo pipes, which you probably can't see because it's buried right under there, but basically there's a pipe coming off either side into the primary or secondary turbo, and disconnect the vacuum pipes from the dump valve. My dump valve, you'll notice the eagle-eyed among you has an extra port. That's because I'm running the auto VDC. I don't have a manual, so I have an extra feed. And also to disconnect here and remove that from the throttle body. So that's the intercooler removed and turned upside down. I've only removed one pipe so far, the vacuum system, which is 21, which sits on the two pipes that go along the back. There's quite a few to remove. There's pipe number 3, which sits this side, and pipe, I think number 2 sits the other side, and then number 1 goes into the diaphragm. With the intercooler off, we've now got access to the knock sensor connector here, so I'm just going to disconnect that. Next, I'm going to disconnect the turbo feed pipes off of the air intake duct. One this side and again one the other side on the secondary. Just try and zoom in on that. You can just see the Jubilee clip under there. I'm now going to remove the fuel lines and take the pressure out of the lines. Now the car's been off the battery now for about 24 hours, so there may be some pressure left in the system. There probably will be. If you look at the Haynes manual, it will tell you to go into the back seats and get to the top of the fuel tank and release the pressure that way, but it's just too much messing about for my liking, so I'm just going to do it the conventional way. Fuel lines are now off, so now it's the other oil breather pipe. So I've also blanked off the two turbo inlets just to make sure nothing can fall down there. It's just with a bit of plastic, and it should be fairly obvious. I need to remove those when it goes back together, but I don't fancy doing a swap out of a primary or secondary turbo because something disappears down the hole. I have read on a couple of forums that it may be possible to remove said chamber, this is not the one that's fitted, without removing the inlet manifold. So to kind of assess that, I got an old one together and had a look at the fixing points, and there seems to be 2 at the front and 1 at the top, which is a snapped one, which is over there. So it may be possible, depending on getting some of these other pipes out of the way. So I'm going to have a look at doing that now and see if I can save the aggro of removing the inlet manifold. because it obviously would save quite a lot of work if that didn't have to come out. So the next pipes I'm going to remove is the T-piece that comes off down here. Now on mine, this is a pipe which feeds the dump valve. This is where the dump valve was connected, one of the pipes there. And it also tees off into this one, which disappears to pipe 10, which is the one that then goes into the wing under here. If you haven't relocated your solenoid valve, I have, mine's over by the battery. So we're going to disconnect that one and then remove this larger dump valve air feed pipe as well, and then disconnect from the primary turbo down here. The next step I think we're going to do before I start tackling air pipes and things and vacuum pipes is just remove the electrical connectors that are sitting on the inlet manifold, so this one and any others that I find lurking about that I may not have spotted yet. So I've disconnected two of those electrical connectors, this one as well. I've taken the earth lead off. You won't have this solenoid, I don't think, if you're on a manual. And next I'm going to disconnect this pipe here. As you're no doubt aware by now, it's a bit of a myriad of vacuum pipes on the BH5 twin turbo, slightly more if you have the auto version. So I've just been looking at the best way to disconnect this little plethora of pipes here, and I think because this solenoid is attached to the inlet manifold and this is attached to the inlet manifold, this pipe here, then the easiest thing to do is going to be to remove it from this further connecting T-piece, which then goes to various places, including pipe 10. I'm going to remove the intercooler bracket next. It's not that it's necessary per se, but I think when it comes to lifting the inlet manifold out it could be tricky, so just to give me a bit more room I'm just going to whip those two bolts out as well. Next I'm going to remove or disconnect pipe 10 that goes into the wing here from the myriad of T-pieces that goes to the rest of the vacuum system. I'm going to remove what is referred to as the F pipe that connects to the secondary turbo. This is brittle, so this is going to go one way or the other really. You've got to disconnect it from a large clip here and then disconnect it from the top of the secondary turbo here. With a bit of gentle persuasion that actually went better than I thought and managed to get away without cracking anything. The interesting thing to note is that this pipe goes over the connection, but this pipe goes into the connection, so it's just one to look out for. Next I'm going to remove the pipes that have the coolant feed to the turbos on both sides, so this one on the passenger side and this one on the driver's side. So I've been having a good look around at what needs to be done next. Some people recommend dropping the alternator, removing the aux belts. I'm not entirely sure that's necessary. The reason why is because here's an inlet manifold I made earlier, and this pipe sits obviously under there. Let's get it around the right way, like that, and this sits over it. And what that does is that attaches to the front up there, and you have two attachments underneath. Well, if you turn the inlet manifold over and then look at how it would sit, you can see it bolts into the inlet manifold. So, in theory, if you can get the whole thing unbolted with the pipe, there's no reason it wouldn't come out as one without interfering with things like the alternator and the primary turbo. I really don't want to have to slacken this or drop its header pipe to be able to get some wriggle room.